In this shocking tale from Venezuela, thousands are feared dead after two devastating earthquakes struck Caracas on Thursday night. Geological survey used predictive modeling to estimate the worst-case scenario, suggesting a death toll could exceed 10,000. Venezuelan journalists like Daniela Blandon report that rescue teams rushed to areas hardest hit by the quakes. The first earthquake occurred at 10:23 p.m. local time on Thursday and measured 7.5 on the Richter scale. It struck in the state of Falcón, causing widespread destruction across multiple neighborhoods in Caracas. Buildings crumbled like toothpicks, trapping people inside as they watched their homes collapse around them. Eyewitnesses describe scenes of utter chaos and despair. Families desperately searched for loved ones in ruins that once housed life and laughter. In some areas, entire blocks were flattened, leaving only debris and rubble behind. The second earthquake hit just hours later at 10:52 p.m., measuring 7.3 on the Richter scale. This pair of powerful earthquakes wreaked havoc in and around Caracas, with many more victims feared dead across northern Venezuela. Rescue teams raced to the areas hardest hit by these quakes, their efforts driven by sheer determination and urgency. They searched for survivors beneath collapsed buildings, where people were trapped or buried alive. In the aftermath, neighbors searched the rubble for survivors in desperate hope, their hearts heavy with grief as they faced an uncertain future. The destruction was widespread, affecting multiple neighborhoods across Caracas. Schools, hospitals, and homes all suffered significant damage, leaving many without shelter or basic necessities. The scale of this disaster is staggering. Rescue workers scrambled to reach victims trapped under debris, their efforts driven by the urgency of finding survivors amidst the rubble. Eyewitnesses describe the destruction as unimaginable, with buildings collapsing in a matter of seconds. The earthquakes unleashed a fury unseen in years, tearing through northern Venezuela with destructive force. As Venezuelans grapple with this unimaginable tragedy, they must also confront a future filled with uncertainty and despair. Many are left without homes or basic necessities, facing the prospect of rebuilding their lives from scratch. The earthquake's impact extends beyond just physical destruction. It has shaken the very foundations of Venezuelan society, leaving communities reeling. In the days following these earthquakes, rescue operations continued to search for survivors in areas that were inaccessible due to collapsed infrastructure. International aid and support poured into Venezuela, offering comfort and assistance to those affected by this natural disaster. The international community recognized the severity of the situation and pledged their support in any way they could. As Venezuelans grapple with recovery efforts, they must also face the emotional toll of losing loved ones and rebuilding lives from scratch. The earthquake has left a lasting impact on communities across northern Venezuela, with many residents still searching for answers about what happened to them or those they knew. The tragedy serves as a stark reminder of nature's power and the fragility of human life in the face of such calamities. In the aftermath of these earthquakes, Venezuelans must also confront their government's preparedness for natural disasters. The scale of this disaster highlights the need for better infrastructure, emergency response systems, and community resilience building initiatives to protect citizens from future catastrophes. As they navigate through this difficult period, many hope that lessons learned will lead to stronger measures in place for future emergencies. The new warning from Iran complicates efforts to revive use of the critical Strait of Hormuz, as Washington seeks regional support for its framework peace agreement with Tehran. UN Ward reported from Beirut and Jenny Gross from London. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, met Gulf Arab leaders in Bahrain to allay their security concerns amid a surge in shipping through the strategic waterway this week. Iran's Revolutionary Guards issued a new threat on Thursday, asserting that only its waters could be used for transit through the Strait of Hormuz and coordinating with its navy. This came as traffic through the strait has increased after months of paralysis. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy warned vessels to strictly adhere to designated routes or face action. Traffic through the strait, vital for oil and gas shipments, had surged to 70 vessels on Wednesday, including 29 tankers, marking its busiest day since March 1. This follows a preliminary agreement between the U.S. and Iran that has not addressed Iran's missile programs, which Tehran used to attack Gulf states during the conflict. Rubio's final stop in his three-country tour for the Gulf region was at a meeting with representatives of the six-member Gulf Cooperation Council (GCC) in Manama. The GCC released a joint statement with the U.S. agreeing on all points with American objectives in Iran, including mediation roles played by Pakistan and Qatar, and emphasizing the need to maintain momentum and unity toward lasting peace. They stressed addressing full-spectrum threats from Iran's ballistic missiles, drones, and supportive proxies. The absence of tolls for vessels passing through the strait between Oman and Iran remains a key point of contention. Omani Foreign Minister Badr bin Hamad al-Busedi spoke with Iranian Foreign Minister Said Abbas Araghchi by phone on Thursday night to reach an understanding on joint cooperation aimed at achieving objectives of the US-Iran memorandum regarding freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. This warning from Iran complicates efforts to revive use of the critical Strait of Hormuz as Washington seeks regional support for its framework peace agreement with Tehran. The surge in shipping through the strait, despite ongoing tensions and threats, highlights both the strategic importance of this waterway and the challenges facing a resolution that addresses all regional concerns. As negotiations continue, the U.S. aims to ensure that security interests of partners in the Gulf region are always taken into account. In an unprecedented move, King Charles Roman III is set to reveal his personal tax bill on Thursday, making him the first British monarch to do so as he addresses demands for greater transparency in royal finances following a scandal involving his disgraced younger brother, Prince Andrew. This comes after months of embarrassing headlines about Prince Andrew's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein and the stripping of his titles. Charles is expected to release details during Buckingham Palace's annual briefing on the sovereign grant, which funds the monarchy through public taxpayers' money. Last year, the palace released a 159-page report detailing how it spent £86.3 million from the treasury, including funds for major renovations at the palace. While Charles previously disclosed his tax payments as Prince of Wales, this will be the first time he has done so since ascending to the throne following Queen Elizabeth II passing in 2022. The move comes amid calls for more transparency about royal finances, particularly after Andrew Mountbatten Windsor scandal and forced eviction from a sprawling royal estate. Charles is expected to release information only on his personal income, which includes funds from two privately owned estates like Balmoral in Scotland and Sandringham on the east coast of England, as well as savings and investments valued at £680 million. The King's wealth places him among Britain's richest people. This push for transparency follows Charles's pledge to slim down the monarchy and cut costs amid growing questions about a hereditary sovereign in modern democracies. King Charles Roman III is expected to release tax information on Thursday, setting a precedent that could influence future monarchs and set standards for royal finances in the public eye. Anti-monarchy campaigners have criticized the move, arguing against self-declaration of taxes by royalty. The revelation comes as part of broader efforts to increase accountability within the monarchy, which has faced scrutiny over its financial practices and ties to political figures like Prince Andrew. As Charles takes on his new role as monarch, this transparency could be a significant step in rebuilding trust with the British public, who have grown increasingly wary of royal affairs. This is read by an automated voice. Please report any issues or inconsistencies here. Set us as preferred Washington. The Supreme Court ruled Thursday that asylum seekers may be turned away without a hearing at the southern border, a historic retreat from the promise of relief for those fleeing persecution. Asylum seekers may be denied entry and sent back to their home countries without ever having an opportunity to argue their case in court. This decision upholds a turn-back policy begun by the Trump administration as an emergency response to surges of Haitian immigrants at border crossings, but now extended to other regions. The justices split over whether this was a simple legal dispute or a moral question involving desperate families. Siding with the Trump administration, conservative justices said the Refugee Act of 1980 guarantees asylum seekers a right to seek relief upon arrival in the United States, not when they are turned back by border officials. The liberal dissenters saw this as an absurd interpretation of the law, citing the infamous St. Louis voyage where over 900 Jewish refugees were denied entry, and many died during World War II. Congress passed the Refugee Act to prevent such tragedies from repeating. Yet if asylum seekers attempt to apply for protection at a border crossing today, they could be blocked by immigration officers who would refuse even to consider their applications. The decision upholds this turn-back policy that began in 2016 and has been extended to other border crossings, but challenged as illegal in federal court in San Diego last year. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled against the Trump administration's interpretation of the law, saying a person who presents themselves at a border crossing arrives there and should be allowed to apply for asylum. Justices Alina Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson agreed with this ruling. The Supreme Court upheld a federal judge in San Diego's decision that migrants were wrongly denied an asylum hearing. John Sauer urged the court to review and reverse these orders, noting 15 out of Ninth Circuit judges had sided with the challengers. In another win for the Trump administration, the court also upheld the policy of blocking asylum seekers at the southern border. By a 6-3 vote, the justices said migrants do not have a right to apply for asylum if they are not already in the United States. This decision could affect up to 1.3 million non-citizens who were granted temporary protected status (TPS) from 17 countries and living in the U.S., including Haiti, Syria, Honduras, Nicaragua, Afghanistan, and Venezuela. Since TPS was created in 1990, the government has ended its protected designation for citizens of 18 countries. DHS under then-Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen ended TPS for Honduras, Nicaragua, Afghanistan, and Venezuela. A spokesperson previously said allowing Syrians to remain is contrary to national interest. In a historic retreat from the promise of relief, the Supreme Court upheld a policy that denies asylum seekers entry without a hearing at the southern border, overturning previous rulings in favor of migrants' rights. This decision leaves thousands vulnerable to deportation without an opportunity to prove their case. The UN's International Maritime Organization has abruptly halted its evacuation plan for thousands of stranded sailors in the Strait of Hormuz after a cargo ship was attacked. This unprecedented pause underscores the precarious security situation at sea. IMO Chief Arsenio Dominguez confirmed that several boats had already been evacuated, but the agency wanted to ensure necessary safety guarantees remained in place. The British Maritime Security Agency (UKTO) reported on Thursday that a Singapore-flagged vessel named Ever Lovely was struck by an unknown projectile 7.5 nautical miles southeast of Oman's port of Dahat. No casualties were reported. Maritime risk management firm Vanguard noted the ship continued through the strait despite the attack, highlighting its defiance. The evacuation effort began only 2 days prior, when the strait reopened under a UN-backed plan. IMO Chief Dominguez emphasized that the safety of seafarers was paramount and stated that the evacuation plan would be paused until further clarity is obtained. Ship tracking website Marine Traffic reported that Ever Lovely entered the strait using the southern route on Thursday morning, exited through the eastern side at around 15:30 local time 16:30 BST, and showed no need for assistance. Since February, hundreds of ships and thousands of sailors have been stranded in the Gulf due to ongoing hostilities between Iran and U.S.-Israel. The UN's evacuation plan was only announced on Tuesday with the cooperation of Iran, Oman, the U.S., other coastal states in the region, and the maritime industry. This latest incident has raised concerns about continued security risks at sea. The U.S. and Iran agreed last week to end hostilities under a 14-point deal that also called for Iran to allow free passage of commercial vessels with no charge for 60 days. However, Tehran plans to impose what it calls maritime service fees, which is vehemently opposed by the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has warned that no country is allowed to impose such charges on the Strait of Hormuz, a critical waterway for oil and gas shipments. The price of crude briefly fell below $72.48 per barrel after the U.S.-Israel attacks, but has since edged up to $73.23, reflecting ongoing negotiations over Iran's nuclear program and other measures to end hostilities. This pause in evacuation efforts underscores the complex security situation at sea and highlights the challenges faced by seafarers during this volatile period. The UN's decision to suspend the evacuation plan serves as a stark reminder of the precarious nature of maritime operations amid regional tensions, underscoring the need for continued vigilance and cooperation among nations. Francois Picard welcomes you to our Spotlight segment. Professor Eric Kleinenberg of NYU challenges a key assumption about climate resilience, that technology alone can safeguard societies from extreme heat waves. Drawing on his groundbreaking study of Chicago's deadly 1995 heatwave, he argues that mortality during such events is as much shaped by social ties as weather conditions. In the summer of 1995, one of the most intense and prolonged heat waves in U.S. history struck Chicago. Temperatures soared to record highs, with some areas reaching up to 106 degrees Fahrenheit 41 degrees Celsius. The city's population was not prepared for such an extreme event, and the consequences were devastating. Professor Kleinenberg's research revealed that mortality during the heat wave was significantly higher among those living alone or in isolated households. In contrast, people who had strong social networks, those who received frequent visits from neighbors, friends, and family members were far less likely to succumb to dehydration, exhaustion, or other complications of extreme heat. Kleinenberg's study highlighted how the lack of community support can exacerbate the risks posed by extreme weather events. In a heat wave, it is often not just the temperature that matters, it's also the presence of someone who might knock on your door, offer you water, or check in on you during this time. This insight underscores the critical role of social infrastructure and community support systems in preparing for and responding to extreme weather events. In many communities across the world, heat waves are a growing concern due to climate change. Without robust social networks and community engagement, vulnerable populations could be left even more exposed to the dangers posed by rising temperatures. For example, during the 2010 Russian heatwave that claimed nearly 13,000 lives, many elderly residents who lived alone or in isolated areas were at a higher risk of death. Similarly, in parts of India and Pakistan affected by the 2015 heatwaves, people living without air conditioning or adequate cooling faced greater risks. Professor Kleinenberg's research suggests that building stronger social ties can be as crucial to survival during extreme weather events as having access to advanced technology. It highlights the importance of policies and community programs that foster connections among residents, especially in vulnerable populations like the elderly, children, and those living alone or in poverty. In conclusion, while technological solutions are important for mitigating climate change impacts, they cannot fully protect societies from the dangers posed by extreme weather events without a robust social safety net. Professor Kleinenberg's work underscores how community support and strong social infrastructure are essential to effective heatwave response, ensuring that no one is left behind in times of crisis. Stay with us as we explore this crucial concept further. In today's unfolding disaster in Venezuela, at least 188 people have already perished and over 1,500 are injured after two devastating earthquakes rocked the country's northern states, leaving thousands trapped under rubble. Rescue crews and desperate citizens alike searched desperately for survivors on Thursday as officials warned the death toll could rise significantly with rescue efforts yet to reach the hardest-hit areas. The quakes hit the populous region of La Guaira, including the capital Caracas, causing widespread destruction. Videos shared online show collapsed residential buildings in both cities, with residents estimating hundreds were still trapped beneath the rubble. The president of Venezuela's National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, reported that over 200 people were confirmed trapped and another 157 missing as of Thursday afternoon. In La Guaira specifically, where many residents live in shantytowns on hillsides, there are growing fears about the potential death toll. Rescue workers have been scarce, prompting locals to mobilize their own efforts. One woman described hearing taps coming from people trapped beneath the ruins and believed her boyfriend was inside one structure. The situation is exacerbated by Venezuela's economic struggles. Once rich in oil but now struggling with a decade-long depression that has decimated its economy, the country faces ongoing challenges including hollowed-out rescue services, deteriorating infrastructure, and record-high inflation. This disaster comes at a crucial juncture following Maduro's removal from power last January, transforming Venezuela into an ally of the United States. President Trump responded to the crisis by pledging international aid, writing on social media that his government is ready for quick action. However, the effectiveness of this aid remains uncertain amidst Venezuela's ongoing political and economic turmoil. As rescue efforts continue, the human cost continues to rise in what promises to be a long and challenging recovery process for one of Latin America's most troubled nations. The destruction caused by these earthquakes has exposed the vulnerabilities of Venezuelan society, particularly in densely populated urban areas like La Guaira. The collapse of buildings not only claims lives but also exacerbates an already dire situation, where rescue services are severely underfunded and understaffed. The economic fallout from this disaster is expected to compound recovery efforts. Venezuela's economy, once reliant on oil exports, has been devastated by years of mismanagement and international sanctions. The country faces high inflation rates, which can make basic necessities unaffordable for many citizens. This backdrop of economic hardship means that even if rescue workers manage to reach all the trapped individuals, providing aid will be challenging. The political situation in Venezuela also adds another layer of complexity. After Maduro's removal from power last January, the country was transformed into an ally of the United States. While this shift could potentially bring more international support and resources, it has not yet translated into tangible assistance on the ground. The lack of clear communication channels between Venezuelan authorities and U.S. agencies further complicates efforts to coordinate relief operations. The aftermath of these earthquakes will likely be a test for both Venezuela's government and its allies. With so many lives at stake, every effort must be made to ensure that rescue workers can reach those in need as quickly as possible. However, the challenges posed by economic hardship, political instability, and logistical difficulties mean that recovery efforts may face significant obstacles. As rescue crews continue their grim work, it is crucial for international aid organizations, including those from Washington, to step up their support. The effectiveness of this assistance will be critical in mitigating further loss of life and ensuring the well-being of survivors. This disaster serves as a stark reminder of the ongoing struggles faced by Venezuela's people and highlights the need for sustained and coordinated efforts towards recovery and stability. The Supreme Court's decision today directly impacts hundreds of thousands of Haitian immigrants whose lives have been altered by years of protected status. In a 6-3 ruling, the court has allowed the Trump administration to terminate temporary protected status TPS for 350,000 people from Haiti and 6,100 from Syria. This decision overturns previous federal judge decisions that had blocked the administration's efforts to end TPS. The U.S. initially granted TPS to Haitians after a major earthquake in 2010 and to Syrians after their country descended into civil war in 2012. TPS provides legal residency for up to 18 months, allowing these individuals to live and work in the United States without fear of immediate deportation. Thursday's ruling also means that migrants arriving at the U.S. border will not be eligible to apply for asylum until they set foot on U.S. soil. This change was a significant win for the Trump administration. In his opinion, Justice Samuel Alito emphasized that the law governing TPS clearly prevents courts from reviewing government decisions regarding its termination. Justice Alina Kagan dissented, stating that the decision violates the Fifth Amendment's equal protection rights and is racially motivated. She noted that statements by the administration suggest a racial bias against Haitians. During his 2024 presidential campaign, President Trump had amplified false rumors about Haitian immigrants, claiming they were abducting and eating house pets. The impact of this ruling will be profound for TPS recipients from Haiti and Syria. Without these protections, hundreds of thousands of individuals could face deportation. This decision is likely to affect other TPS holders as well. The U.S. Congress created the TPS program in 1990 with bipartisan support to provide limited legal status to people whose home countries are unsafe due to violence or natural disasters. Haiti, a country that has long struggled economically and politically, faces an even more dire situation now. It is the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere and among the poorest globally. Political instability, foreign interventions, gang violence, and historical French debt have all contributed to Haiti's ongoing struggles. Since Jovenel Moïse was assassinated in 2021, the country has faced increasing violence, with more than 24 gangs controlling much of Port-au-Prince. The UN reports that gangs are now expanding into previously safe areas, forcing displaced individuals to seek refuge themselves. This situation has led to an estimated 1.5 million Haitians being displaced. The escalating gang violence has created widespread fear and instability in the country, with more than 2,300 people killed and over 1,100 injured this year alone. For those who have found temporary safety under TPS, the recent ruling means they could soon face deportation to countries where their lives are fraught with danger. The human cost of this decision will be felt throughout America as families are torn apart, local economies suffer, and people are forced back into environments marked by violence, instability, and humanitarian crises. Today's decision puts hundreds of thousands of people at risk. Without these protections, they face a future filled with uncertainty and potential hardship. The Supreme Court has now cleared the way for the Trump administration to remove legal protections from TPS recipients, leaving them vulnerable in an already precarious situation. In today's electrifying World Cup drama, Ecuador defied expectations to reach the last 32 with an upset 2-1 victory over Germany, a result that sent shockwaves through footballing circles. The match at MetLife Stadium was a nail-biting affair, with the scoreline changing in the final minutes of play. A controversial Leroy Sane goal for Germany just 2 minutes into the game quickly gave the Germans an early lead. Ecuador's response came from Nilson Angolo, who equalized through a well-taken strike after 23 minutes. The tension only increased as both teams fought to take control of the match. It was Ecuador that managed to regain momentum and assert their dominance in the second half. Gonzalo Plata scored the late winner for Ecuador, sealing a memorable victory. This result meant Ecuador finished Group E with 4 points, guaranteeing them a place in the last 32 as one of the 8 best third-place teams. It was an unexpected outcome that sent waves through South American football and beyond. Meanwhile, Ivory Coast secured their passage to the knockout rounds with a commanding performance against Curacao. The match at Philadelphia saw Issa Sissoko score twice for Ivory Coast, ensuring they finished Group E as group winners. This victory marked Ivory Coast's first appearance in the knockout stage of a World Cup since 1998. The tournament continued its packed schedule on Thursday with 6 games across different venues. In Los Angeles, the United States clinched top spot in Group D with a convincing win over already eliminated Turkey. Coach Mauricio Pochettino hinted at potential rest days for key players to avoid unnecessary risks, indicating that he was looking ahead to future matches. The U.S.'s strong start has raised hopes they could go on a deep run at home. In Santa Clara, Australia and Paraguay battled for second place in the Group F round. A draw would favor the Socceroos thanks to their better goal difference, but would likely be enough to send Paraguay through too. In Kansas City, Tunisia's poor form saw Hervé Renard sacked after their defeat by Japan. The team had suffered successive 4-goal defeats and faced further challenges as they prepared for a clash against the Netherlands. Despite the heavy losses, the Dutch under new management continued to struggle, suffering another 4-0 loss this time to Sweden. Japan, now level with the Dutch in Group F standings, will face off against Sweden in Arlington on Thursday night. This matchup could determine second place and set up an intriguing clash between Japan and Sweden for the final spot into the knockout rounds. In Miami, Brazil clinched top spot in Group C with a decisive 3-0 win over Scotland. Neymar made his first appearance since October 2023, adding to the team's strong start at home. This result not only secured Brazil's place, but also showcased their dominance and potential for further success. As the tournament progresses, nations like Brazil, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador continue to make significant strides. Meanwhile, others face elimination or uncertain futures. The World Cup 2026 has already proven to be a spectacle with more MENA countries participating than ever before, adding diversity and depth to the competition. In today's news wrap, a stark directive from the Trump administration has sparked controversy. National Park Service staff are being ordered not to reveal deaths or details of severe injuries at U.S. This unprecedented policy shift is shrouding an alarming reality that goes against public trust and official denials. A National Park Service official revealed this week that the reflecting pool liner was cut with a knife or razor, hinting at potential fatalities or serious harm in one of America's most sacred natural spaces. The incident underscores the vulnerability of these iconic sites to unauthorized intrusion, raising questions about security measures and public safety protocols within national parks. Meanwhile, a federal judge has blocked President Trump's executive order on mail-in voting regulations and voter list creation, highlighting ongoing legal battles over election processes. This decision signals that even presidential decrees can be challenged in court, reinforcing the importance of democratic oversight and checks on executive power. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced that the controversial detention center known as Alligator Alcatraz is closing, bringing to an end a facility that critics have accused of inhumane conditions. This closure marks the conclusion of what was seen as a contentious and potentially dangerous institution, though it does not address the broader issues of immigration detention centers which remain under federal jurisdiction. These developments underscore deep divisions within American society regarding public safety and privacy policies at national parks. The Trump administration's directive to National Park Service staff not to confirm deaths or details about severe injuries raises serious concerns about transparency and accountability. Despite officials insisting the policy is meant for public trust, it appears designed more to shield sensitive information from scrutiny rather than fostering openness. This move represents a significant departure from established protocols, potentially undermining efforts to ensure public safety and inform the public of critical issues within national park systems. As this issue unfolds, its implications remain unclear, with critics questioning whether such an order could lead to further concealment or even cover-ups in other sensitive situations at national parks. The administration's stance on this matter reflects broader debates about government oversight and public trust in institutions like the National Park Service. These issues highlight the tension between protecting privacy and ensuring transparency in a federal system where multiple levels of government operate, each with their own priorities and responsibilities. The Trump administration's directive to National Park Service staff not to confirm deaths or details about severe injuries at U.S. national parks is part of a larger pattern of actions that have raised significant concerns among advocates for public safety and accountability. Critics argue this order could lead to further concealment, potentially undermining efforts to ensure transparency in other sensitive situations within the federal system. The administration's stance on this matter reflects broader debates about government oversight and public trust in institutions like the National Park Service, where multiple levels of government operate with their own priorities and responsibilities. These issues underscore the need for robust checks and balances to maintain public confidence in governmental actions, especially those affecting sensitive areas such as national parks.